so happy to see you all back on my channel today. Today, I'll be sharing the latest chapter in the emotional story of Ly Hoai Ca and Hùng, two ordinary people who never stop fighting through life's hardships to protect their little family. After everything they've been through, it seemed like peace had finally returned, but no, a new turning point is quietly approaching. Will love and faith be enough for them to overcome what's coming next? Stay with me until the end of today's video to find out. It's going to be full of surprises and heartfelt moments. And don't forget, if you love this series, please like, share, and leave a comment to cheer for Hoai Ca, Hùng, and little Tony. Early morning. The first rays of sunlight were still faint, slipping through the rows of areca palms by the gate and scattering across the village path, damp from the night rain. Dewdrops still clung to the leaves, sparkling like tears that hadn't yet dried. Along that narrow path, Hung's mother walked slowly, each step heavy, as though she were carrying her entire past with her. She stopped in front of the old house, once the home of her family. The gate had been repainted, the fence replaced, and the flower bed in the yard no longer held the golden chrysanthemums that Hoai Ca once planted. She stood there for a long time, her quiet eyes searching for something familiar, but everything had changed. A soft breeze blew by, gently brushing her old dye. She raised a trembling hand to touch the cold iron gate. After a long pause, she gathered her courage and pressed the doorbell. The chime rang softly, but in her heart, it roared like thunder. For a few seconds, the yard inside was silent. Then, from the house, a middle-aged woman appeared. She opened the gate, her eyes filled with mild curiosity, perhaps wondering why a stranger had come so early. Hung's mother bowed her head slightly, her voice small and trembling. "I used to be the owner of this house. Back then, I had to pawn the deed because of hardship. Today, I came to ask if you'd allow me to buy it back." The woman froze, a flicker of unease in her eyes. She looked Hung's mother up and down, stayed silent for a moment, then replied gently, "I've heard a little about your story from the neighbors, but I'll need to discuss it with my family first. Please leave your number, I'll think it over." Hearing that, Hung's mother bowed again. Her hands clasped tightly in front of her chest, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you. I'll wait for your call." The homeowner nodded and walked back inside. The gate closed softly, leaving Hung's mother standing alone outside. She remained still, her eyes fixed on the empty yard, as if trying to memorize every corner that once held so much warmth. Then, slowly, she turned away. Her steps were heavy and unhurried, yet she tried to keep her composure. The morning breeze swept through, lifting strands of her silver hair, while in her heart, the woman's words and her uncertain gaze still echoed clearly, as if they had just been spoken. That afternoon, the sky was brushed with a soft golden hue, sunlight as gentle as honey spilling through the swaying coconut leaves by the gate. The narrow road leading to the old house was silent, only the wind whispering over the tiled roof, and the sparrows chirping before darting away. The breeze carried the earthy scent of damp soil mixed with the faint aroma of dry straw from nearby homes, making time itself seem to slow. From the end of the lane appeared Hung's mother. She walked slowly, each step heavy, hesitant, as if even touching the ground might awaken something she wasn't ready to face. Her faded gray dye fluttered softly in the wind, and her worn-out rubber sandals made faint sounds against the road. Her face had grown thinner, her eyes sunken, shadowed with fatigue, a gaze woven from longing and quiet remorse. The iron gate of the house still stood there, slightly ajar, catching the golden light of dusk. Its paint was peeling, revealing patches of dull rust beneath. Inside the yard, sparse grass pushed through old bricks, a few dry leaves curled and drifted with the wind. She stood there in silence, her trembling hand resting on the gate. Cold. So very cold. Her eyes followed every familiar trace. The small flower patch by the corner. The doorstep where Hung once sat repairing his sandals. The spot where Hsia used to hang laundry in the late afternoon. Everything had changed, and yet in her mind, it all remained the same, as if time had never passed. A gentle breeze brushed by. She looked up at the moss-covered roof, her heart tightening. Years had passed, and this place still looked peaceful, painfully peaceful, only she had become the one out of place, the one standing outside of it all. Her lips quivered, as though she wanted to say something, but no words came. Only a faint sigh escaped, dissolving into the wind. Just then, footsteps echoed from the end of the lane, the soft drag of sandals against the ground, mixed with the clatter of plastic baskets. She turned around. A sturdy woman with a kind face and neatly tied hair was walking toward her, carrying a bag full of groceries, likely just back from the market. It was Anha, Hsia's foster mother. Seeing a stranger at the gate, she paused, her eyes watchful but not unkind. Setting the basket down, she spoke, her tone calm yet firm. "Are you looking for someone?" The older woman startled slightly. She turned, her face showing a flicker of unease, lips trembling as she tried to find her words. Her voice came out soft, shaky. I'm an old acquaintance of Hsia. I heard she doesn't live here anymore, so I just wanted to stop by." Aunt Ha looked surprised for a moment, then nodded gently, wiping the sweat from her forehead. "Oh, I see. Hsia and little Tony are up in the city now. The boy's in speech therapy. They'll be there for a few more months. I'm her foster mother. I'm just looking after the house for them." At those words, the older woman's eyes trembled, a flicker of emotion rising, then fading quickly. She lowered her gaze, her voice catching slightly. "Then, how are things between Hsia and Hung now?" Aunt Ha blinked, a little surprised by the question. Then she smiled, a warm, motherly smile touched with pride and tenderness. "They're doing very well. They love each other deeply, both working hard for Tony. Hung was home just a few days ago, tired, but devoted to his wife and son. A man like that is rare." Hearing this, the older woman clasped her hands tightly. Her nails pressed into her palms, but she didn't flinch. Only her voice, small, trembling like a fragile breath, slipped out. "I'm glad. I only needed to know they're doing well." Aunt Ha looked at her for a moment longer, sensing the sincerity in her eyes. Then she nodded kindly and said, "You must be tired from the trip. Why not come in for a cup of tea?" But the woman shook her head quickly, forcing a faint smile. Deep wrinkles traced her face, carved by time and regret. "No, thank you. I just wanted to stop by for a bit. I'll be going now." Aunt Ha hesitated, wanting to say something more, but finally just murmured, "All right," and watched quietly. The older woman turned away, her steps slow and trembling, her shoulders quivering with each breath. The late afternoon light draped her silver hair in gold, shimmering in the wind like dust from time itself. Her footsteps faded down the narrow path, blending with the soft rustle of the bamboo leaves, leaving behind the quiet old yard, steeped in an unspoken silence, like the echo of words that were never said. ChatGPT.NOI. Night fell. The wind had calmed, and the row of houses around the hospital glowed softly under the pale yellow light of the street lamps. Hsia had just lulled Tony to sleep. The little boy's breathing was steady, his tiny face resting gently on her arm, warm and peaceful. The hospital room was quiet, filled only with the ticking of the clock and the faint echoes from the corridor outside. As she tidied up the bed and folded Tony's blanket, her phone suddenly vibrated. Aunt Ha was calling. Hsia quickly picked up. From the other end came the familiar, gentle voice. Hello, Hsia. How are you and Tony doing lately? Is he speaking any better now? Hsia smiled, her tone soft as a whisper. Yes, he's talking a lot more now, Auntie. He can say Mom and Grandma quite clearly, though he still lisps a little. Aunt Ha chuckled warmly. That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it. Don't worry about home. I'm keeping everything tidy for you too. Just focus on taking care of the boy. They chatted for a while longer, their voices blending gently, carrying a quiet warmth that felt like home in the middle of the night. Then, as if remembering something, Aunt Ha's tone grew softer, tinged with hesitation. There was a woman who came by today, looking for you. Hsia froze for a second, lifting her head. Looking for me? Who was it, Auntie? Aunt Ha thought for a moment before replying. She said she was an old acquaintance, wanted to ask about you and Hung. She stood outside the gate for quite a while, looking around the yard before speaking. She was polite, gentle, spoke with kindness. Hsia frowned slightly. She searched her memory, trying to recall anyone who might seek her out, but the more she thought, the less it made sense. Her voice grew quiet, uncertain. An old acquaintance? But I don't really know anyone back home anymore. Since moving here with Hung, I've barely seen anyone. Aunt Ha chuckled softly, half teasing, half reassuring. Well, who knows? Maybe she just heard about you and wanted to check in. Don't overthink it. She seemed kind, really. Yes, okay, I understand. The call ended. Hsia set her phone down, but a faint unease lingered. The warm light of the bedside lamp reflected on her face, revealing thoughtful, distant eyes. Outside, the night breeze brushed against the window, making the curtains sway and scatter shadows across the pale wall. She sat still for a long time. A face flashed in her mind, a woman's face, weary and sad, moving slowly down a quiet path. Her chest tightened for a moment, and she whispered to herself, "No, it can't be her." But no matter how she tried to dismiss it, the old memories crept back, quiet, persistent, and heavy. The darkness of the room thickened around her, wrapping her in silence, while beside her, Tony's soft, rhythmic breathing was the only thing that kept her grounded in the present. Night had fallen. Outside, the wind had stilled, only the soft glow of a yellow streetlight slipped through the narrow window, spreading a warm hue across the tiled floor. Inside the hospital room, Hsia had just lulled Tony to sleep. The little boy lay quietly, breathing evenly, his tiny hand curled around his mother's fingers. The room was wrapped in silence, broken only by the ticking of the clock and the faint patter of drizzle left over from the evening rain. Then, the phone on the bedside table began to vibrate. Hsia glanced at the screen. It was Mother Ha calling. She quickly picked up, and the gentle, familiar voice of the older woman flowed through the receiver, warm and caring as always. Hello, Hsia. How are you and Tony doing these days? Has the little one made more progress with his speech? Hsia smiled faintly, her voice soft, weary but tender. Yes, Mom. Tony's been really good. He's talking more now. He can say Mom and Grandma clearly, though he still lisps a little. On the other end, Mother Ha let out a quiet, joyful laugh. That's wonderful to hear. I'm looking after the house for you too, so don't worry about anything back home. Just focus on taking care of the boy, all right? Yes, I know, Mom. Thank you so much. They chatted for a while, their voices mingling gently, like a comforting lullaby in the stillness of the night. Then, after a short pause, Mother Ha's tone softened, a note of hesitation creeping in. There was a woman who came by today asking for you. Said she was an old acquaintance, wanted to know how you and Hung are doing. Hsia froze slightly, her eyes lifting in surprise. An old acquaintance? Who could that be, Mom? I don't know anyone back home anymore. Mother Hu's voice slowed, as though recalling the moment. I'm not sure either. She stood at the gate for quite some time. When I asked, she said she used to know you, spoke politely, very gently. She looked troubled somehow. Sad, maybe. Hsia was silent for a few seconds. Faces from her past flickered briefly in her mind, but none stayed. She shook her head. Her tone dropped, tinged with confusion. I really can't think of anyone, Mom. Since moving here with Hung, I've hardly kept in touch with anyone from the old neighborhood. Mother Hu chuckled softly, still warm and calm. Well, maybe she just heard about you and wanted to check in. Don't overthink it. She seemed kind, nothing to worry about. All right, I understand, Mom. Thank you for telling me. When the call ended, Hsia set her phone down and sat in silence for a long time. The yellow light cast a gentle glow on her face, revealing eyes clouded with quiet sadness. Outside, the wind brushed lightly against the curtains, scattering soft shadows across the white wall, like the breathing of the night itself. She turned to look at Tony. The little boy slept soundly, his lips moving faintly as if speaking in a dream. Hsia gently brushed his hair, then leaned back in her chair. Suddenly, a face surfaced in her mind, a woman with sorrowful eyes, silver-streaked hair, and a slow, weary gait. Her heart tightened. But almost immediately, she shook her head, whispering to herself, No, it can't be her. Yet, no matter how she tried to dismiss it, a heavy feeling settled deep inside her chest. The stillness of the room grew thicker, so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat, pulsing softly between the steady breaths of her child, like a fragile thread anchoring her to the present. Amid all the memories that refused to sleep. Late at night, outside the station, the night wind swept through the rows of xacu trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and the thick chill of dew. Inside the duty room, the fluorescent light cast a pale glow over the old wooden desk where Hung sat reviewing his case files. The clock read almost 11. Everyone else in the unit had gone to rest, only the faint sound of footsteps echoed occasionally down the empty corridor. Leaning back in his chair, Hung exhaled quietly. In his mind, the faces of Hsia and little Tony surfaced once more. He wondered if his son was asleep yet, and whether his wife was still awake, keeping watch beside the boy like she always did. He pulled out his phone, the screen lighting softly in the dim room, and pressed call. After a few rings, her voice came through, soft, familiar, and warm. Hello, it's me. Hearing her voice, Hung's expression softened, his tone gentler now. Hey, it's me. Are you two asleep yet? Has Tony been behaving tonight? He's sleeping already, she replied with a faint smile in her voice. He practiced speaking a lot today, even tried to copy me reading letters. That's great. He's improving fast. And you? Still tired? Hsia chuckled quietly, her voice warm but weary. I'm alright. Mom Ha keeps calling to check in and remind me things. Oh, speaking of her, she said a middle-aged woman came by the house today, said she was an old acquaintance. She asked about both of us. Hung fell silent. He frowned, absently tightening his grip on the pen in his hand. His voice dropped, low and thoughtful. An old acquaintance? That's strange. Who would ask about both of us? Do you have any idea who it might be? No, I don't. Mom said she seemed gentle, polite, but I can't think of anyone. I haven't been close to anyone back home for a long time, certainly not enough for them to come all the way there. Hung leaned back again, eyes drifting toward the window where the streetlight filtered in. The shadows of trees swayed outside, stretching and shifting like hazy traces of memory. His voice grew quieter, as though half speaking to Hsia, half to himself. Strange. I haven't spoken to anyone from the village either. How would someone know where we are and about both of us? Silence hung between them. The hum of the ceiling fan and the soft chorus of crickets outside filled the space where words had paused. After a while, Hung cleared his throat, trying to shake off the unease creeping through him. Forget it. Maybe it's just an old neighbor or someone passing by. Don't dwell on it too much, it'll just keep you up. Alright. You should rest too, honey. You've got work early tomorrow. I will. Sleep well. I'll call you tomorrow. The call ended, the screen dimmed, and the room sank back into quiet. Hung remained seated, eyes still fixed on the window. A vague sense of foreboding lingered in his chest, a heaviness without a name. The night wind slipped through the crack in the door, carrying faint whispers that rustled like a warning. A warning of something unseen, quietly approaching. Morning came. The sun had just risen, its first gentle rays slipping through the glass window, spilling across a desk cluttered with papers and files. Inside the office, Hung was focused on checking reports. The steady rhythm of typing and the low murmur of colleagues' conversations filled the room, calm, ordinary routine. Everything seemed peaceful until his phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the screen. An unknown number. Still, he picked up. A woman's voice came through, soft, polite, and strangely familiar. Hello, is this Mr. Hung? I'm the current owner of your old house. Hung froze. His fingers stopped midair above the keyboard and his breathing slowed. The woman continued, her tone composed yet gentle. A few days ago, a middle-aged lady came to see me. She said she used to own the house and wanted to buy it back. You once told me that if anyone came asking about the house, I should let you know, so I thought I'd call right away. The air around Hung seemed to thicken. He didn't speak, only the faint ticking of the clock and the dull thud of his heartbeat filled his ears. The woman's words echoed in his mind, each phrase sinking deeper. A middle-aged woman wanted to buy the house back. He tightened his grip on the phone, his voice coming out low and strained. Did she say what she looked like? She was probably in her 50s, the woman replied thoughtfully. Quite thin, dressed simply, spoke very gently. She said she'd fallen on hard times and had to pawn the house, but she's saved up enough now and wants to redeem it. She seemed sincere, honestly. She looked like she'd been through a lot. Hung said nothing. His chest constricted, breath heavy, uneven. The sunlight pouring through the window seemed to dim, swallowed by the fog of his thoughts. A middle-aged woman, thin, gentle voice. Wants to redeem the old house. Didn't tell him. The fragments came together, one by one, forming a picture he didn't want to see. He lifted his head, eyes clouded with emotion. His lips trembled, but no words came out. A familiar ache stirred within him, sharp, undeniable. And in that moment, as clearly as if time had folded back, he heard it. A distant echo, the fragile voice of a woman from long ago. Hung me Ca and Loy. His hand clenched tighter around the phone. He stared blankly out the window, where morning sunlight shimmered over the busy street below. Yet all the noise faded into silence, leaving only one thought, heavy and piercing, echoing through his heart. Could it be my mother? Afternoon. A light rain began to fall, tiny drops sliding down the car window, merging into blurry streams that reflected the pale yellow glow of the streetlights. The rain tapped softly against the glass, its rhythm blending with the heavy sound of breathing inside the silent car. Hung sat there, both hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed vacantly on the misty road ahead. The drizzle outside was gentle, but inside him, everything churned like a storm. Questions kept circling in his mind, each one echoing painfully like a broken melody on repeat. Why is she showing up now? What does she want? Coming to find Hsia? And why? Talk about redeeming the house? He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. Old memories surged forward, the image of a mother leaving in haste, carrying away every bit of money and leaving behind a hollow nothingness he never managed to fill. He remembered her eyes, tired, distant, and the sharp slam of the door that day. That sound had carved itself deep inside him, a wound that never truly healed. And now, that same woman had returned. No warning, no explanation, just to say she wanted to buy the house back. And worse, she had gone to see Hsia, the very person who had suffered most from the chaos of that past. Hung opened his eyes. Raindrops clung to the windshield, then slowly merged, sliding downward in shimmering trails. His gaze softened. Inside those eyes was not just anger, but something far deeper, a trace of longing, of sorrow, emotions he thought he'd buried long ago, now quietly resurfacing. His grip on the steering wheel tightened, an uneasy weight pressing on his chest. He whispered under his breath, barely audible, "This time, will Mother bring peace? Or another storm?" The rain kept falling, its sound blending with the rustle of wind through roadside trees, a cold, echoing song, like the sigh of memories long forgotten. Inside the car, the light cast shadows across Hung's face, half in brightness, half in shade, mirroring the war within him, torn between resentment and love. He remained still, staring through the rain, where the streetlights blurred into the night like fading ghosts. Each heartbeat thudded slowly but heavily, marking the rise of a decision forming deep within. Stay tuned for the next episode, when Hung decides to face his mother, the woman who quietly returned to find Hsia. Will their long-awaited conversation heal the wounds of the past, or reopen the scars that were never meant to fade?
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hiện tại thì bây giờ đang rất là khuya, bây giờ thì là 11 giờ 13 phút. Mình thì vẫn chưa có làm xong video. Nói chung là ngày nào mình cũng làm việc muộn hết. Tại vì cũng một phần là do lỗi của bản thân mình không có tập trung làm việc cho lắm. Lúc buổi ban ngày á, mình cứ bị mấy cái lung tung làm mình không tập trung, xong mình lướt điện thoại này kia, sau đến tối mình mới bắt đầu mình ngồi mình làm, thì buộc là nó phải làm muộn rồi. Mình cũng biết là do bản thân mình nên là mình cũng chịu phải ngồi làm khuya như thế này để có thể làm xong video, và chắc tầm sáng mai mình sẽ đăng tải lên. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì đã theo dõi video của mình nhé. Cảm ơn mọi người. Tạm biệt mọi người, chúc mọi người ngủ ngon. Mình sẽ hoàn thành nốt để đi ngủ. Bye bye.